Hello, hello. Welcome to the first part of a new series and direction for me on this channel. My name is Cherry. I do Pokemon ROM hacking, and I'm very interested in the scene in general. So that's why I started up this series to go about the ROM hacking scene and interview some more prominent talent. I'll get to the interview proper in a moment, but I do want to just ask first, not even to like and so, but just to share this video around if you enjoy it. The more eyes on this project, the more people I will be able to poll for an interview. So it only helps out to share. I'll be making video chapters for each major question and answer portion, as well as making self-made closed captions that you can turn on, not the auto-generated stuff, in case you have trouble understanding what's being said. All right, interview time.
I'm Andrew Benito. I go by ddumpy. It's my little fun artist project where I don't have to take things seriously. I've been making music for most of my life, and I currently teach music for a living.
Oh, you teach? Oh, like...
Yeah. I own my own studio here in Oklahoma.
Like high school or
I teach
or like on the side?
like a variety of levels, but it's a private studio that I own, and I teach
nice.
all the way up to college level.
I definitely support private stuff like that. That's really awesome. Good for you. What are some of your musical inspirations? Like anything that specifically got you into making music?
Yeah, absolutely. My first kind of big wake-up call for wanting to make songs was I heard Zed. One of my old friends showed it to me, and man, I could not get over the feeling of electronic music. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to like do that forever, like give people the feeling that I felt in that moment. And so I've kind of been chasing that high ever since. I don't still make electronic music primarily, but I've kind of taken some time to get good at that and good at music theory and jazz and stuff. So
yeah. Is there any, like, in terms of learning music theory, like how do you start on a base level and then start learning the more complicated stuff? Was that an easy thing for you, or did it take a while to figure it all out?
That's a great question. I mean, for me, music has never been something that's been super challenging, but that's also because it's kind of like a hyperfixation for me. I do have like perfect pitch and stuff, so
well, that helps.
Like, hear a chord, yeah, I already know what the chord is, so it makes the writing process and the creative process a little bit more interconnected that way. But as for how people should get started learning music theory, I know a lot of people are going to say this, but learn your scale. Learn the 7 notes that make up a key. And then from there, go to the 7 chords that go with those 7 notes. And I know it sounds probably more complicated than it is.
Yeah.
But I've shared this same concept and the same approach to learning college level theory with kids that are like 7 to 10. I guarantee anyone can learn music. It really is just
you just gotta have the mind for it, right? You gotta be willing to put the
determination. Yeah.
So you teach in real life. Do you play any instruments? And if so, like, what's your favorite ones to play?
Yeah, I play about 20 or so instruments.
Oh, nice.
Like I said, music is definitely like the one thing I've kind of stuck with in life. And so my favorites, growing up, I wanted to play drums more than anything.
I feel like that is like a kid's thing. Like it's always like, I want the drum set, you know?
Yeah. And the
that was a
parents
thing
were like,
for me too.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. I think our neighbors might kill us about that one.
But they did have a piano, and so I grew up playing the piano, and that's probably one of my favorite instruments is piano.
I love piano as well. It's very versatile.
Yeah, it's very expressive, right? Like if you're feeling a certain kind of way, like you can very easily just, communicate some of that stuff. Or like whether you're putting like different harmonies and stuff, I don't know. I really, really like having the ability to make the same passage feel many different ways. And I think it's easiest for me to do that with piano, just because
a lot of my favorite songs have piano, and a lot of them use piano in different ways, because you normally think of piano as like a sad, kind of solemn, melancholy instrument, but I've heard songs that are like they use piano as like a bumpin' hyper track, like that kind of thing. It is very, very versatile. It's one of the best instruments in my opinion as well, so I'm glad to see that you enjoy it. I know piano is very much linked to MIDI. I know a lot of stuff in MIDI is like you start with piano and then you can convert it to different instruments. Does knowing certain instruments in real life translate to making stuff in MIDI? Because I would assume that you need to do stuff in MIDI for ROM hacking.
So I won't get too much into the technical side of it, but we do sequence everything for Mario Eclipse.
I gotcha.
Meaning we can't use any loops or any like real instruments and stuff like that. So yeah, MIDI is where all of the stuff is done. And if
Okay.
you can
Yeah.
see the project file I pulled up earlier,
Yes.
it's just green, right? There's no audio files in there. It's just so a lot of this, if I'm on the road, I'll write it, sometimes even pen and paper or a voice memo or something to like see the score, like this.
Oh, I
But
see. I
yeah,
gotcha.
when it comes to writing my MIDI, I always love to start with playing it on the piano. And I actually did that here for this song. The entirety of the structure of the song comes
Hmm.
from this piano recording that isn't even in the song. It's literally just there as a placeholder for me to
Oh,
know what
that's
to do.
interesting.
So, like,
Okay.
if we listen to like this section over here, just for example, right? So it's just something I played on the
Hmm.
piano, and it sounds
Yeah, and
alright, but
I
it's
could
kind of
hear that too. I noticed in the track for Mario's Dream.
Waltz Upon the Stars
Yes,
or
I
Waltz Upon the
noticed
Stars.
that when I heard that track, I was like, this person plays piano. Like, this sounds
Yeah.
so natural. You can tell when you hear like a MIDI piano and it's like someone just putting notes in. This person plays piano because that track
So
flows so well.
such a fun fact about that song. I did originally write it on a piano,
Hmm.
but at the time I didn't have a full-size MIDI keyboard. I only had a little like 25 key keyboard,
Oh,
like
nice.
that fits into like a backpack kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wrote out the idea on a grand piano, and then I had to manually put in all of those notes and then reference it back to my version that
I
I'd played on the
see. I
piano and
see.
see where is it playable, where is it not playable. But yeah, that one was so annoying for that reason. And every song that was produced after that, I bought a full-size piano, of course, so I could just record it and not spend
I
time
gotcha.
doing
I
it.
gotcha.
So yeah, you can just kind of hear like how that melody is played here on the piano when I originally recorded the concept,
Hmm.
and how I transformed that into being like more fleshed out with different instruments.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's 100% how I go about writing. Most of the songs that I do, I feel like a key to getting your songs to capture the creativity that you want in them
Hmm.
is you have to work fast. Because unless you're documenting those ideas in a way that you're going to remember, you're going to forget them.
If you don't get those ideas out as soon as you get them, like you could try and remember them later and they're gone, you know?
Yeah.
Or they're diluted from what could have been. But yeah, so how'd you find yourself coming to compose for Mario Eclipse? I would assume you were a Mario Sunshine fan.
Big Mario Sunshine fan.
How did you discover the team? How
Yeah.
did they like scout you? Did you scout them? What happened there?
So like three-ish years ago, I want to say, near the start of the development of the mod, I actually was really into the game. I kind of like fixate on one game at a time when I play them because I don't have that much free time. But Mario Sunshine was my game of choice. I was speedrunning it, just having a blast. And I kind of started deep diving into modding the game. And I came across, like Arcade 2 and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I want to make my own mod of this game. And I started kind of, looking around for resources on how to do that. And that's when I stumbled across Sunburn, which was made by Epic Wave.
Yes, I played Sunburn first too. I checked out Sunburn first, and then I heard about Eclipse, and then the V2 demo. That's very recent. I keep forgetting how recent that is. And Wade helped with the V2 demo, right?
That's right, yeah. Wade is one of our stage department guys, so he helps
nice.
a lot with Eclipse. But yeah, I came across this Sunburn mod, and I kind of reached out and was like, how can I help you guys? Because it kind of seems like you guys are already doing what I was gonna do,
Yeah.
So instead of me learning how to do this horrible, because Sunshine modding at the time was in a very dark place, man. The tools and the resources are not where they are today, and a lot of that's thanks to people like Wade, people like Joshua MK, who have just contributed massive quality improvements to being able to mod the game in the first place.
Like, people would probably forget that's GameCube. Like, GameCube modding, like, compared to like I would say like some of the most popular modding games is stuff in Unity. Anything that is like way older and has had time to get tools made for them, like Mario World, the Pokemon Game Boy Advance games. Those are a lot easier to mod than something on the GameCube, because you would need to do models, you need to figure out a lot of code that is not decompiled at this point, I would assume. So it's a lot of working around restrictions. So I definitely I commend the effort put into Eclipse. It's a miracle that game even exists in the state that it is.
I feel the same way, man. Every time that we get into one of our bi-weeklies and I'm seeing the progress that gets done, it always is just kind of like, man, I remember when we just couldn't touch this game. Like, this game was not moddable at some point. We were doing character swaps, right? And now we have, like, full-on custom stages and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that's the kind of stuff I love to look forward to in any GameCube stuff. It just takes that couple of people to kind of, like, bring everyone together and move things forward. I really think that's really admirable. That's why I love going throughout all these ROM hacking spaces, not just because I ROM hack myself. I just think it's a really respectable thing to go back and try and make games that we all grew up with and have seen played like for 20 years now, and see them get updates, see them get new stuff that would never have happened before.
Oh yeah.
Very, very entertaining.
I'd love to see Nintendo at some point, give Sunshine a little bit of love. But
that's never gonna happen.
This rate, yeah. At this rate, it's like we got to do it ourselves.
You get the Piantas in a level, and that's it. Since we're on the topic of ROM hacks, what difficulties or restrictions did you come across with having to develop music for this hardware, for the GameCube with the sound fonts? I am actually more curious about the sound font stuff. Like, there is a bunch of stuff in the soundtrack that I can tell is using Mario Sunshine instruments, but the few that are more nebulous for me, like, I'm not sure if I've entirely heard that kind of instrument in the soundtrack before, so I'm curious at how limiting it is.
That's a great question. And yeah, so when it comes to like the direction that we've chosen for the mod, it's more or less placed somewhere in between Sunshine and Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
So as far as instrumentation is concerned, we've chosen to keep it mostly with that tropical kind of sound set that we know and love from Sunshine, but also we're starting to introduce some more intricate harmonies like we heard from Galaxy, as well as even strings and stuff like that we really didn't see a lot in Sunshine.
Yeah. One thing from Galaxy that I did notice was the wump 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 in Waltz Upon the Stars theme.
Oh yeah, the little
that's the Galaxy bleep loops. I don't even know what I would call it, but I did notice that.
So the sounds that we're using and the way that we're sourcing these, although we do have the Sunshine sound font and we use that kind of as a basis for when we're coming up with songs, we've actually gone through and sourced all of the original material that Nintendo used, like the Yamaha keyboards that they had and the CDs packs that they were pulling from. So the reason we did this is because Sunshine's looping, like the note looping, is very, very weird. And when I say looping, just so we're kind of on the same page, they use samples, right, in order to cue the sounds.
Yes.
And to extend the sound longer than the actual sample is, it kind of repeats the sample in a specific way in order to artificially extend it. And they just did not do a good job. It does not sound good on the majority of the sound font.
I gotcha.
And it's probably because they didn't need it to, right? They didn't use those sounds in the way that we're using them. And so it fit their needs and their disc size, and that's kind of all they were concerned about.
Yeah.
So we've gone through and we've sourced those original materials. And on top of that, if we have other sounds from those CDs, from those keyboards, those original hardware pieces, we'll go ahead and use that stuff too, because
it's in the era, it's in the same kind of ballpark.
So it kind of fits in its own little way, right? A lot of times people can't pinpoint, ooh, what if this is not from Sunshine? And that's because we've done a really meticulous job of trying to keep all the sounds from a certain era. Now, I won't lie, I use a lot of Logic instruments, and that is for a reason. It does, again, have to do with their sourcing, but on top of that, Logic just has some beautiful default sounds that kind of come across as giving that kind of retro sound. I love their classical guitar in here. I've used it for a couple pieces, and I even love their stock string libraries. It's pretty nice. So I've used a lot of those pizzicato plucks and stuff like that.
I've heard a lot of the strings sound very nice. They do remind me a lot of Daisy Cruiser, which is like the main hub world for Eclipse. Daisy Cruiser has a lot of really good guitar and other string work in it that I've always thought fits right in with Sunshine. So to hear it like really translate well to a Sunshine ROM hack feels like kind of like history's vindicated in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Any other Mario games other than Sunshine and Galaxy that you pulled stuff from? I assumedly Double Dash 2 took a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah, so all of the songs that came from Double Dash are actually just direct sound font swaps. I didn't even touch up on those too much myself. I think the Daisy Cruiser one came from someone called Pablo's Corner. In our music department alone, we have like 6 people now.
Oh my goodness.
Somewhere around that.
Nice.
Yeah. So for the demo, I ended up composing most of what's on there. Most everyone who joined post-demo too. But a lot of credit does go to Sherman Haynes, who's the guy who composed the Lancia Freda Peaks theme. We worked together on the Vaporwave theme, and we also worked together on
I did notice that. I did notice there was a second name on that soundtrack. But yeah, how is working together with like the music team?
It's pretty great. We've streamlined a really nice system in place that allows for people who aren't comfortable with working in kind of professional settings for music to be kind of more comfortable with our process, and even people who aren't comfortable with making music for Sunshine or for game development. You know, these systems are meant to really help them. Most of the new people that we've brought on have been under an unpaid internship opportunity, so we do kind of classes with them and cover music theory aspects and talk about the sound design way more in depth and how we do that. So it's kind of just a way for us to give back to the community while at the same time bringing new people onto our team, so that when we move to bigger and greater projects, you know, we're not kind of a ragtag band of 5 people, but we have a full-fledged
got people that can team. And then can also go on to do great things themselves with the knowledge that they've learned. Very, very respectable. I gotta say, I'm pretty like astonished to hear how like professional everything is in the Eclipse dev team, because I've been in some ROM hacking circles and it's not as professional. But
I won't even lie to you. We've actually had some controversy in the past where people felt like we took a mod way too seriously.
Yes.
But to us, it's always been much more than just a mod.
Oh, of course. It's always been... It's game development. It's gotta take
and this
seriously.
Is meant to be kind of like the launching board for what we have planned in the future, which I would love to, but I can't give too many details about our future projects. but
just from how I can hear it in your voice, I can tell that you're excited to do stuff even beyond what's already been planned. So very, very kudos to you, and very, very happy to you for all that. Since we're on the topic of the team, how does like song development and game and art development, how does that all like coexist? Like, does song development happen after a stage has already been mostly completed, or like what is the stages of development in that sense?
So we do have concept artists who strictly are in charge of just getting, you know, the raw concept of what a stage is going to be out. Most of the time when those concepts are out, our music department is pretty quick about picking them up. We really don't need more than a picture and a description, and people get straight to work. It's really, really admirable. I know myself, I get so excited to work on these new stages that, you know, I'm kind of knocking them out as quick as possible. But sometimes we do need a little bit more of, you know, a visualization. And so we have to wait for a proof of concept stage to be built, or even the early stages of development, so that we can actually see what we're making it for. But I think probably the most interesting interaction that we have between our departments when it comes to creating these things is we're very, very picky about making sure that the vision of the stage designers is captured whenever we make the music. So it starts off just with us making a quick proof of concept piece, and this will only be 8 to 16 measures, and usually that is where most of the songs get cut, right? We just want a very, very quick, okay, do you guys like this for the stage, or are you wanting something else? They'll send us references, they'll send us descriptions, they'll send us screenshots of other stages, other games that they're interested in, and kind of trying to reflect the atmosphere that we're supposed to capture. And it's gone mostly well. We had some funny examples before. There was a guy who would always send references of Sonic songs, and that was kind of the main. But most of the time, we have a pretty streamlined process for just making sure that, you know, whatever the stage people are wanting, even if they're not musicians, even if they don't know what they want, we kind of work until we meet that vision, because it's really, really important that the stage and the music are matching the same idea.
Exactly, yes.
If there's a disconnect, it's just not going to make the player feel immersed in that world.
Yeah, that is a word that I think I would use to describe Mario Eclipse for the most part, is that you do feel immersed in it. You do kind of feel like it's a Sunshine, like, part 2, like a Mario Galaxy 2 of it, that kind of thing, because everything kind of fits together well. And I'm shocked at the low amount of, like, stuff that I go like, an amateur made this, you know? Like, I don't see a lot or any of that is in Mario Eclipse. Of course, it has a lot to do with, like, how Sunshine kind of is. Sunshine is very flawed, even though I like it. So, like, any, like, kind of flaws that pop up in a ROM hack of it, I'm also like, that's kind of like in the spirit, you know?
Right, yeah. Yeah, and we've actually done a whole bunch under the hood to actually make Sunshine play better just in itself. I don't know if you've looked into the Better Sunshine movement engine. This was something that Joshua MK has made, and not only does it add compatibility for mod support to Sunshine, but it also adds so many quality of life improvements and bug fixes, collision fixes bonking on certain things. So now when you dive out of a rollout, you can actually go into a wall jump, and it just adds a lot of that fluidity that we see in games like Odyssey to Sunshine, which once you start playing with it, especially with the new moves that have been added, it's almost impossible to go back, because it really makes Sunshine look like a downgrade from this kind of more modern port. So for me, it's very, very difficult to play vanilla Sunshine, because I'm just I miss my hover burst and I miss my hover slide and all that stuff.
Yeah, even stuff like just having the long jump in. I mean, like, I know a lot of people are like, the long jump is gone because it wouldn't feel good with the hover nozzle. Like, no, it feels awesome to be able to jump
it really does,
in a direction fast, because I already think that Sunshine on its own has really good movement, and I really like how fast it is. The only problem with it is that Mario goes wow off like every single platform that he's on, because the game isn't really built around him being that fast and being able to do all these different maneuvers. So even just in Eclipse, and I believe Sunburn also uses that engine, correct?
I think it had an early version of it, but I know that not to say too much, but I know that it's going to get updated soon, TM.
But I did notice that a lot of the stuff just plays a little bit better. It's a really good improvement all around, even if it's stuff that you wouldn't notice. Maybe that's the best thing possible, is that you don't notice how much better it feels. It's just something in your brain that's like, I like going through these levels with this Mario.
It's probably worth noting, a lot of the Sunburn mechanics are going to be transferred over to Eclipse. So if you're fond of being able to navigate from level to level just by kind of going in their direction or swimming across the water, that stuff is going to return, as well as the no boot out shines, which were featured in the demo.
That's the stuff I love. I love not being booted out of the level. It's Sunshine's biggest problem, in my opinion. I really adored that in the demo, and that is interesting to see that you will be able to go to different levels. That's not just on the Daisy Cruiser, because I did notice that was a little bit like, I wish I could go to the different levels instead of being taken there on that little map screen, even though it was cool. So that is interesting. I'm glad that I know that. So leitmotifing. There is a leitmotif I noticed in both of the Lancia Freda themes, and you said that the original one was composed by someone else, and then you jumped in presumably for the cave theme as well. I noticed there's one little leitmotif in it. Have any other leitmotifs that you snuck into like similar tracks, or like any that you brought in from canon Mario songs?
That's a great question. So the thing with the Lancia Freda and the cave theme, we felt that it was very important to really connect the different sub areas of the game, while still giving them kind of a unique tone. So if you listen to the songs side by side, you'll notice one is a major version and one is a minor version.
I gotcha.
And so the theory behind this is basically just moving to the relative minor and keeping all the chord progressions the same, more or less. It was a bit too on the nose, so that's why I ended up rewriting the second half of the cave theme to be more unique and more interesting. But yeah, the main melody there is identical in both. When it comes to little melodies and stuff like that carried over from other Mario songs, I actually had a discussion about this with one of our sound guys the other day. We keep it to a minimum. And that's actually for several reasons. One of which is kind of goofy. We're releasing our songs onto streaming platforms and stuff, just as kind of a way to, if people enjoy the music, add it to your Spotify kind of thing. But if we have too many references towards Mario songs and stuff, it can be like qualified as a remix or an arrangement of one of their songs. It's not illegal for us to post those. In fact, it's perfectly fine. But we can't monetize them.
So stuff like the Pianta Pit theme would not be monetized.
That one won't get, that won't be able to be monetized or be able to be posted on Spotify or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But again, that was an idea where Pianta Village is located above, right? That's where you normally are in Mario Sunshine. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to have a very, very similar version, but almost kind of more empty and dark sounding for the pit version of it.
Yes.
And so that was an arrangement made by Purple Twirler, and I liked the way his sounds turned out and everything. So I did some light
I would say I like
one.
that better than the normal Pianta Village theme. There was something a little bit off about the original Pianta Village that I think was rectified. I can't exactly say how, but I do like it better.
One thing that I can point out for the way that we get away with hiding certain motifs, and this is gonna be an unreleased song right here. But yeah, it's for a stage that we're working on. I'm not gonna give too many details about it, just so that Josh doesn't, come back later and fight me.
Bring in the Eclipse ninjas, as it were.
Yep, they're gonna get me, man. But what I will say about this theme is it actually had 3 variations as well for an inside, outside, and boss theme. And one of the things that we did kind of to have fun with one of the sections here is in the intro to Mario Sunshine, when you're in the airport, right? There's this little string line that plays. Right?
Yeah,
it kind of plays that
yeah.
line over there. So I mixed this into a certain section of the song over here.
Oh, I heard it there, yeah.
So it's very, very subtle, very hidden.
Oh, I love that sax. Sax,
right? So we have those kind of just layered underneath. But yeah, that's kind of the idea over there. It's like, if we want to use those melodies, those motifs, we're going to do so in a way that is very, very subtle. I like to tell my music department, we want ear candy. We want people to hear the piece for the 5th time or the 6th time and notice little things that they didn't hear the first time. That's going to make them happy. And the only way to do that is we have to be very, very subtle about it, so that they don't catch it the first time around.
It adds so much. And I really think the quality will carry hacks like this to reach a wider audience. And I think it already has. I think the Eclipse with the V2 demo has been just going crazy recently, especially on YouTube.
We had Box cover it, Tetrabit Gaming, D-Pad Gamer.
Tetrabit did it. I didn't know about that. That's cool.
And we're still reaching out to more people. We actually have a dedicated PR department who's just in charge of reaching out to people like that, seeing if they want to cover them on. I love the organization of the team.
You got all your bases covered, man. That's good to hear. What was your favorite song to work on now? The whole OST, like which one is your absolute favorite?
Oh, it's definitely a tie between probably 3 different things, being the Vaporwave theme, the Pinecone Pathways, and the trailer. The trailer was actually a lot of fun to make
I see.
because it kind of combined themes and soundscapes, like instrumentation from every stage. It was
Yeah.
just a whole big, culmination of them all.
Really had a similar feel to the credits theme from the original Sunshine, where it's like a celebration
I
of
didn't
it
even
all.
listen to that. I probably should have compared listened to that reference. But Pinecone Pathways was fun just because I got to mess around with some really interesting rhythmic aspects that usually I don't get to do, especially for Eclipse stuff. I kind of went out on a limb of putting it in like 5/8, 6/8, some 7/8 bars, and just mixing up the meter so it feels very flowy but off at the same time, just slightly, like a constantly climbing mountain, which was, of course, the theme for what we were going for. Vaporwave.
That's the one that took
my
off,
favorite
man. That's
just
the one
because-
that fan favorite, I guess.
Yeah, so the fun thing about that piece is that piece went through many, many different versions of itself. I think around 14 unique identities for the song were created, all of which never made the chopping block until the very final one, and that was a chord progression that Sherman had written using one of the electric pianos from Gelato Beach. Or actually it might have been from Noki Bay, but it sounded crazy. I loved the chord progression, and that same night we stayed up till about 2 a.m, and I was just writing bass lines and counter melodies, and it all just fell into place that same night, which was a lot of fun to just kind of have a piece just come together so nicely, and for it to be what it is. Definitely one of the more stellar songs of the soundtrack.
Yeah, and it's definitely starting to take on a bit of identity of its own. I think a lot of people, I think that might be a song that actually will travel outside of the Eclipse sphere and probably be used by people in different ways, because I have already seen it becoming a bit of a meme in the server. And,
the Dogtooth Vaporwave.
So I imagine that is very gratifying to see something that you work hard on like that turn out great and for people to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Did the general audience opinion of the entire soundtrack, did that line up with what you kind of expected? Like, the most popular tracks are what you thought were going to be the most popular tracks?
For the most part, I definitely say yeah. I think Shine Shaped City got a lot more attention than I expected it to.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite song from the soundtrack.
Yeah, and that one was a lot of fun too. It definitely went through some different versions, but the big influence on that one was the same kind of bands that they kind of wanted to reference for all of Sunshine. Was like Cassiopeia and a lot of these Japanese jazz fusion bands. Yeah, I love their music too. I'm definitely a big fan of the genre, and when I kind of had the opportunity to make a song in that genre for Eclipse, man, I jumped on it immediately. And again, not to give away too much information, but Sherman was actually brought on with that song, not to work on it, but we were making a live version of the song featuring like everyone playing the parts in one setting. So definitely it was a super fun project. I'm super excited to talk about that more in the future. I'll say Shine Shaped City is not going to be the only one that gets a little remaster.
That's very entertaining though. I love to hear stuff like that. That's awesome.
More so than just having people write it to be playable in the mod, to have some of these songs with professional musicians with no limitations on the sound setting, it's going to be fun to see some of those come out.
Any concepts, well, we already kind of touched on this a little bit, but any concepts for potential songs that ended up on the cutting room floor, or any release songs that sounded radically different in early production?
Yeah, let's hear one of these Vaporwave themes, because it sounds nothing like what we got. This was one I just chopped up myself a while back.
I gotcha.
So it's much more of like very chill, but kind of like underground, down tempo kind of stuff. And we have a little B section here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so drastically different than what we got, right?
Completely different feeling from it. It almost reminds me of like a Animal Crossing GameCube type of vibe. Have you ever played that game, the GameCube Animal Crossing? Listen to the music?
I haven't gotten much past the intro, to be honest.
Yeah, they have little songs on the radio that you can play. And this sounds very similar to those specifically in that era. So I guess you still nailed the GameCube vibe after all. So I guess it all comes together. Any others that you wanted to talk about from the cutting room floor? Like any songs that just completely didn't go anywhere?
Why don't we take a peek real quick? I think this is one more Vaporwave thing. I'll see if I can find one.
You could gussy up a whole album of those at that point.
Oh yeah, just a Vaporwave track. Let's see what this one is. This is way more gritty.
Another one that's way different, yeah.
way more gritty. And that was one of the reasons why we ended up scrapping that one, was just it went too hard.
yeah.
Some of these
both the ones you showed are a lot less chill, I would say, than the one that's
and a lot of the songs even got like after they were finished, they got kind of repurposed into other things. So like some of the work that ended up getting scrapped is still likely we're still gonna see it.
I see.
So I don't want to show too much of these. I'll show one more that I think actually will be kind of interesting. And this was actually when I was first getting back into writing music for Eclipse, because I mentioned I joined about 3 years ago, but I took a year or two break from the project while I was touring the United States and kind of traveling, doing music stuff. When I came back, I started working on the stuff. This one is a bit thicker of a track maybe than we would want. Usually we try to keep them roundish 25 or less tracks because we can only have 15 at a time.
Oh,
and
I see.
Anything that doesn't fit into that 15 has to be consolidated in a very specific way. And technically we can switch banks during songs, but it's like, it's a very primitive and very limiting method. So this one will probably need to be touched up in the future to be more consolidated, more simple. But this was the original theme we had for a stage that is still going to be in, but it's not going to be used for this stage. I'll tell you that much. It was way too intense. Got a little B section here.
Ooh.
Well, yeah, you kind of get the idea.
Yeah.
Some scrapped work, but
got a bit of a Wind Waker vibe in there that I noticed. You ever played Wind Waker before?
I've played some of Wind Waker. I think I played the HD remake on the Wii U.
I gotcha. Yeah, that's the vibe I caught from it. A little bit of Wind Wakery. I assume that there's a lot of cutting room floor stuff that is going to be naturally revamped later on.
I'll say we definitely have well over an album worth of music finished at this point.
I see.
I can't say too much without giving away a lot of the mod stuff, but there's a lot of songs. There's a lot.
That's good.
To the point that we're having to sequence for two different reasons. One is console compatibility. Two is the looping. If you noticed in the demo, we actually didn't get sequencing done in time, so we used stream audio, and there's a little loop after you play a stage for a certain amount of time, like a hiccup. Really annoying, and that won't be a thing in the final version.
And it wasn't console compatible, if I remember correctly, the music.
Yeah, and that also is because the sequencing. We had someone working on it like day and night, but they weren't able to get it done in time for the demo. And
I see.
We felt it would be better to just release the demo for the public to have instead of holding it back until we got the sequencing done. So.
I gotcha. So what would you say is your general sweet spot for song length in a platformer level?
This is very much, I guess, part of how we look in tandem for how the stage departments and the music departments work. There still is file size limitations, so we don't want to make songs that are too long. Typically, most of the ones that I do are around like a minute 30, minute 50, somewhere around that range. It's long enough to have multiple sections, but it's not going to be something super, super long. Now, for the extended releases that we were putting out, we talked a lot about rearranging them and adding some of the parts that we cut, because we trimmed down song length drastically, and we ended up cutting out a lot of really cool musical material in those songs, just because the length was a bit too long. So I would definitely love to finish those up when we have the free time. And that's something that we're looking into as we start bringing on the live instrumentation versions of them too.
I see.
Because yeah, that stuff's just way too exciting. I don't.
I can tell through your enthusiasm. You're looking forward to it.
A stern talking to from Josh after the interview.
I got you. Any Mario songs that stand out in your mind as really good examples of a platformer song?
I love the athletic theme. theme. I think it's one of the best themes in Mario. I know this isn't a platforming theme per se, but Rosalina's Observatory, I think, is one of the best examples of like stage building.
Yes.
The way that there's 3 separate themes as the observatory opens has always been really, really inspirational for me to think about what is the core concept of my piece. If I had to limit this piece to 3 instruments, what would it sound like? And that really helps me to kind of come up with, instead of making a mediocre melody or a mediocre concept and then building it into something better, I have to start with something good, right? The core of the song needs to be memorable, it needs to be catchy. And I tell all of my music people that too. If you play me your melody and I can't hum it back to you, you need to rewrite it. Because if it's not that catchy, if it's not catchy enough for it to get stuck in someone's head, just brutally stuck in their head all day, then we need to go back to the drawing board and we need to figure out how to make that happen. Because if people are thinking about our music, then they're thinking about our game, right? And we want that. We want people to be playing our game and to be sharing it and to be doing that. So both of those themes, especially the athletic theme, we've seen take many different versions across
you can tell
the Mario
they love
franchise.
That theme.
Yeah. And so I think it's cool to kind of recognize where thematic material can be borrowed. And we do some of that in Eclipse, but more so just coming up with pieces that have identity, right? Pieces that can stand on their own.
I see. Well, what in general is your favorite, like, altogether Mario OST out of all of the Mario games that are out there, even like spin-offs?
Oh man, that's so difficult because Koji Kondo is just, his work is stellar. I do love Galaxy. I think that Galaxy went above and beyond with their soundtrack. The thing I love about Sunshine's OST, and I know a lot of people, they don't think of it as their favorite or really even like it too much in certain aspects, is they were working with limitations. And I get to know about that firsthand, right? Exactly what those were.
Hear about how they even had to put in the instruments.
So knowing about that, it gives me so much respect for how intricate they were able to make a lot of these songs sound with that. But I'd have to say probably Galaxy. It takes the cake just because their arrangements, their melodies, all of it is just beautiful on its own. It doesn't need to go with a game for it to be an incredible soundtrack. And I won't even be embarrassed to say, I teach a lot of my students those themes.
No,
I have a student right now going over Rosalina's Observatory because,
my goodness, that's nice.
There's great material in there, and if the kids like to play it, then they're gonna practice it, and yeah.
Game music is music. I mean, it's not like I feel like that's becoming a more accepted thing nowadays. That video games are art, and it's more of a accepted medium than it ever used to be. And I'm very grateful to hear about all that. Any song genres that you wanted to try out that you didn't really get a chance to so far in the demo or otherwise? Well,
I'll say this. Eclipse, one of my favorite things about working on this project, aside from just the amazing people that I get to work alongside, is it puts me out of my comfort zone a lot. A lot. Most of what I've produced professionally over the last 10 years has been some electronic, some R&B, pop music. Like that's what I get paid for, right? That's kind of where I've had to put my efforts into
Hmm.
because it's what pays the bills, right?
Yeah.
And so for me to get to make a piano ballad, for me to get to make a folk sounding mountainous composition, right? Like these things put me out of my comfort zone on a daily basis because I'm not making kind of what I'm wanting or what I'm inspired by. I'm working off of these stages, which are all very, very unique and very different from each other.
Very
So
varied.
yeah, like the theme we heard earlier was like very, very intense, kind of like, fire raining from the skies kind of vibe, where other pieces I've created have just been like Waltz Upon a Star or some of the ones that haven't come out yet, just very chill and very peaceful pieces. And so yeah, I've had a lot of fun. One piece I'll show to kind of showcase the diversity that we have in here. I guess I get to show this one because it's not actually going to be used anymore.
I see.
The stage ended up getting combined with a different stage, and so we don't need two unique themes for them anymore. We only need one. Without going too in depth into the stage itself, it more or less was a place to clean up goop. It's a steamwork place. And I was told it needs to sound like clockwork. It needs to sound very mechanical,
Factory
without having any metal sounds or any mechanical sounds.
I see. Yeah.
So this was weird, right? Because when you think about steampunk and steamwork, like you're just thinking about like the clangs and the bangs and all that stuff.
Exactly.
But I wasn't allowed to use any of this for this, and so it was really, really weird getting to write a piece in a Victorian kind of era sound that meets the description. So I'll play a second of it. Hopefully my stream's up. So, things to point out just right off the bat. There's no drums.
yeah, exactly.
No drums,
I hear a
no
lot of
percussion.
I hear some like cyclical, like a lot of the tones keep repeating intentionally to get this in this mindset of like gears turning.
Yeah, so what this is it's a musical concept called a canon, if you're familiar with that. A very, very popular example of that is like the Frere Jacques song or Canon in D.
Okay,
right?
I got you.
So where a melody is played and then repeats. Let's see, hopefully we get a sound here, maybe. Yeah, so you see what I mean? Like having the two melodies play in tandem and then there's a harmony. It gives a very connected feel, right? It feels very like they're working in tandem with each other. And this is not something that I've gotten to apply in my music almost ever, right? Like I went to college, I studied music theory, I majored in piano, but I make music that doesn't apply common practice or classical music stuff hardly ever. So again, for this team to constantly be pushing me out of my comfort zone, getting to make things that are so different from what I would normally do, it's a dream, man. I absolutely love it. Even when it is a challenge and a headache, it's helping me to grow as an artist, and it's helping me to
you can't grow without adversity, man. I mean, that's something that I go by as well. You gotta keep challenging yourself in order to make better stuff.
There's no growth in comfort, right?
Oh, exactly.
To tap back into that question, Vaporwave and tropical sounds, yeah, I do love them both.
Yeah, I can tell.
So much. A lot of where my kind of tropical influence comes from is while I was in school and college, I toured with a percussion ensemble. And that was like, it was great. I mean, learning how to play so many different instruments, studying Latin rhythms very in depth. I've gone to Central and South America a couple different times, and so I've really been able to study very, very in depth those kinds of rhythms. And Sunshine uses a lot of that. So for me to do tropical stuff,
it's already in your element, and it's already in the game's
it's kind of my
element.
default, right? and that's why I'm glad a lot of these stages are so different, because otherwise, I would just make a whole tropical and bossa soundtrack and call it a day.
How would you even say that? I know that Vaporwave has had a big rise recently. Why would you say that is? Like, Vaporwave kind of has its own little thing. I've never really heard like a band that is a Vaporwave band, but maybe that's just because I haven't sought it out, you know?
When we think about Vaporwave, if we're trying to like put it into one word, what is the purpose of Vaporwave? What do we call this kind of music? The thing that always comes to mind for me is nostalgia.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because that's really what it is. Those old timey analog synths just kind of being like the audio degradation where it feels like it's just an old piece, with still being electronic, of course. But yeah, I think that's what Vaporwave is, and I think that's a huge part in why it's becoming more popular recently. Over the last couple years, we saw the nostalgia trend. Like, everyone was posting on social media, oh, look at the magic sand, look at the silly string, look at all these things that we saw from our childhood. That's been a thing for like probably the past year. I dare say, like, a year or two after COVID finished, or the pandemic mainly subsided, everyone just kind of was like, hey, we live in a pretty shit world right now.
Yeah.
Don't you miss when
it
things
was
were
a little bit better? The old days always seem better.
And this will always happen, right? Every 10 years or so, we're going to see the nostalgia trends crop back up. That's nothing new. Just recently seeing it really, really come to light. I've seen a lot of clothing companies, they've gone back to older styles. Games will be remastering older versions and things like that.
Something that I notice is being in vogue, especially on like artist Twitter now, is low poly models being something that people are trying to do again. Because what kind of fucking professional studio is going to be doing low poly models nowadays? But now it's like, I do love the charm of those old things. Have you ever played any of the original Spyro trilogy on PS1?
Oh, I have not.
Because they made a remake of them recently, and it just doesn't capture that same feel as like those kind of like rustic, kind of crappy, but like in a charming way.
Yeah, it does have a charm
models.
To it. Yeah.
N64, PS1. Even stuff like early DS models, like when they try to do stuff like that in Mario Kart DS and stuff like that. I've always found those really charming, and I'm glad that that's starting to become a thing that indie artists are looking to replicate.
The other thing, and I guess some of this is kind of hidden beneath the Eclipse confidential chats, because we have there's a whole underground network going on behind the scenes. We have a lot of people who are remaking like the older models, right? But like in an HD-ified way. But like,
I see, yeah.
Like, are you familiar with the project Render 96?
No, I'm not, but I would like to hear about it.
Yeah, this is a great one. This is currently run by a guy named Andrak, who just recently joined the Eclipse stages department. But it's taking those old promo art from Mario 64 and turning it into
I know
actual
now.
characters.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know exactly
and
what
we
you're talking
have
about.
a lot of people who are doing stuff similar to that with the beta restoration, and even the Luigi's Mansion community is doing a ton of beta restoration.
I've been a little bit in the Luigi's Mansion community. That's another one that's been getting a big boom recently. I know Luigi's Mansion and Sunshine are kind of like sister games to each other, so I would assume that the modding scenes are also interact a lot.
Yeah, we even have some of the head Luigi's Mansion people on our team.
Yes.
It really is. I can't stress this enough. It is such an amazing team of super, super talented individuals. I feel like we've pulled together kind of like the all-star group right now.
The Super Mario All-Stars even.
Yeah, if only that got a remaster, man. Instead of just inverting the control stick.
I think that's about everything I wanted to touch on. So if you wanted to plug yourself one more time.
You can follow my socials. I got a YouTube channel that I just made a couple months ago. just to post the Eclipse music and some Smash Bros clips, because I play that game and I mod that game. Check out ddumpy Melee, ddumpy on Instagram, ddumpy on everything. I also have a different handle that I use for some of my social medias. If you want to check out my personal endeavors, at ITSDREW Music. It's Drew Music.
I gotcha. And of course, Mario Eclipse. Check it out if you haven't already. I played it on my channel, so I assume people would be familiar with it if they're watching this. So definitely check out Mario Eclipse. They're gonna have a lot of stuff in the future that is just gonna blow your mind, and I have full faith in that.
Oh yeah, it's crazy to me that we're only on the demo right now.
Oh yeah. Only 2 demos so far. That demo was huge though.
But we're out of demo phase, and we're officially cooking on the next chapter. So you know, keep those fingers crossed. We're gonna have a release sometime.
Real exciting
in the near future.
Especially because Mario is like, no Mario games coming out right now. They ain't gonna be making a sequel to Odyssey anytime soon. I feel like they're gonna be waiting for the next console to do a Mario, and it'll be great, but we'll have to wait for it.
we will have to wait, I'm sure. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today, man. It's been a blast.
The pleasure is mine. I've loved having you on. Like I said, I am a fan of your music. I have it in my music playlist. So just someone here that I was like, oh wow, they're really good at this. Like even beyond like just they made a Romhack soundtrack. Like you are a very good musician. So I'm definitely going to be following you in the future to see what you do. So yeah, thank you for coming on to here. It's been a pleasure.